Welcome back to Ultra Uncovered, the podcast where we explore the untamed world of ultra running. I'm Russell Ditsworth, and I'm joined by co-host Corinne Shalvoy here. And today, we're peeling back the layers of a race that is also a party in the desert. It's been around for over 20 years, and if Halloween is coming, you know we've also got the Javelina 100. And of course, I'm pronouncing all these H's with J's. Aravaipa has turned this into a must-experience event, from pros trying to rip a fast time and earn a golden ticket, to first-time 100-milers, to costume-wearing ultra runners trying to have some good R-rated fun. So we'll be talking about all that on our episode today. And speaking of, we're joined by special guest today, Arizona native Deb Hamberlin. So Deb, can you give us a quick introduction for the Ultra Uncovered audience?
Thanks, Russell. Thanks for having me, you and Corinne. I am from Arizona, been running here all my life, and Javelina is one of my favorite that I keep coming back to year after year. So I can't wait to talk, a lot more about it. But we'll kind of get into it. But my first experience was back in 2008. So I have seen some huge changes over the years, and it's a big party. So get excited to peel back.
Well, awesome. And I'd like to go through that kind of high level, what everybody's experience is with the race. So Corinne, maybe if you could jump in and just tell us, what's your experience with Javelina 100? I know you've been there a number of times and are involved with Aravaipa. So why don't you go into that as well for us?
Yeah. So before I do that, I'm super excited. Deb's on with us today. We just saw each other at the USCA Trail Running Conference, or the USCA Coaching Conference, I should say, in Colorado Springs. So she was in our neck of the woods. But I've known Deb now for a few years. I think, first met officially through Free Trail on the Free Trail Femmes calls. I'm sure I'd seen you at many times, Deb, but just have gotten to know you pretty well in the last couple of years. And one of the first things that anybody ever told me about Deb was that she was like the queen of the Grand Canyon. And if you needed to know anything about the Grand Canyon, she does it multiple times a year. And so she was the person to ask for any advice on that. So, just a long, long history in the sport of trail and ultra running. And I think you're an awesome just example of longevity in the sport too, which, as a female in my early 40s, I'm always inspired by you. So I'm really excited to just hear more about your Javelina background. For me, I have experienced the race in a number of different ways. I ran my second 100K was Javelina 100K in October of 2020. So COVID year. So I would say the first time I got a little bit of a intro to Javelina, but not the full Javelina experience, because we were starting in waves and we were very limited in terms of size, and there were no spectators. It was a little bit of a different experience, but it was still an awesome one. And then I have also commentated the race. I've been on the live stream last year. And then I crewed my husband for his attempt at the 100-mile distance and started pacing with him. So I've kind of crewed and paced, as well as, this year I'll be towing the line at the 100-miler myself. So crewed, paced. I started pacing Tara Dower on lap 4 after we'll talk about that story.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So kind of have seen it from all angles. And I'm also really excited because the company I work for, The Feed, will be the title sponsor of the live stream this year. So also kind of seeing it a little bit from a brand perspective and marketing perspective. And it's my favorite. I have always loved Halloween. It is right down my alley in terms of just what I like in life. So I absolutely love the race. Can't wait to talk about it.
So Deb, you've got something behind you that I want you to show the audience, but then also, why don't you talk about the years? You said starting in 2008, but talk about the years that you've run and participated and kind of what your history is, and then maybe what you've got coming up this year.
Yeah, I mean, Javelina was my very first 100-miler. And I got introduced to it before even Aravaipa was running the race. So I went out there, like I said, 2008. Jamil and Nick had started saying, we'll help out. It was the Arizona Road Racers run back then. And it was definitely a learning experience having my first 100-mile attempt. At that time, you could finish the 100K and roll down, and if you want to call it, they'd give you a buckle. So as my first attempt, it was unsuccessful, but I did get a 100K buckle on that year. Yeah. And as we go through, we'll see like it's grown and grown. At that year, 2008, there was 120. I looked it up. There was 129 total finishers. Last year, there was 996 finishers. Woo. So, and I'm guessing there's going to be a lot more even this year. But, over the years, this will be my 10th running of the Javelina between the 100Ks and the 100 milers. I have 400K finishes, 400K buckles. I could probably pull those out too. And then I have 400 miler buckles and one DNF, which was a great learning experience. And we talk about some suggestions and things to do and not to do. I've got some things not to do. And so I'm hoping this will be my 5th 100-mile finish. They present you a 100-mile jacket if you get, or 5-year finisher jacket if you get the 5 years for the 100-miler. So that's my big why. I was successful. Let's say, we're talking about, Corinne said longevity in the sport. In your 40s, it's never too late. When I was 45, I won the 100K. So this is my 100K first place female finisher.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Pretty awesome.
Love it.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
So, yeah. So, Corinne, you've got time.
Look at that outfit. That fit is
And then
amazing.
also,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's so big you can't fit it. It doesn't fit, under here. You just got it kind of goes out.
Deb, she is wearing Mesa High colors, just so you know. It's
Jackrabbit
colors.
It is Jackrabbit.
Purple and gold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm from Gilbert, Arizona. Russell from Mesa, Arizona. So, yeah, there's a little rivalry right there.
Crosstown rivals.
Even though I'm sure I was long gone before you were graduating, but still.
Well, you guys have both experienced it on site. I have experienced it as a fan and as a follower of runners that I know that were from Castle Rock Run Club that are running it, following along the live stream, watching it from afar from that perspective, and then watching it as a fan of the sport as the race has taken on a competitive spotlight in the sport with being a golden ticket race and being involved from that perspective. And to Deb's point, I mean, this race has grown significantly over the years, and 990 something finishers last year. I'm guessing that was both the 100K and the 100 miler,
and the 31K probably too as well.
And the 31K, wow. Yeah. So almost 1,000 across 3 distances, and just we may talk about the exact numbers, but there's 2.5 times that are either on the entrance list or on the wait list. So there's a ton of interest in participating in this event. So it's one of those that's always on the calendar. Like Corinne has said, it's got that vibe with Halloween and with kind of a fun and energetic atmosphere that is just always something that I'm wanting to pay attention to.
Yeah, what's great, it's got the golden tickets, and you guys will talk about that more, but it also has the time frame where a lot of people can come for their first time 100. Like I said, it was my first time 100, and even though I didn't get it done the first year, that was still when I came back the second year, I got my first year finisher there. And the time frame that they allow it, and especially with the 100K, if it's your first ultra, come out for the 100K, they give you 29 hours. Mm-hmm. So it's really it's a race for everybody, not just for people going for the golden ticket.
Yeah, that's the super cool part of it, is that just it's a portal into the sport and into the world of ultra running. I have someone I'm coaching right now who will be doing Javelina as her first 100K this year. So, and I definitely recommended that as, one of the ones to check out, not only because of the terrain and just not crazy elevation, but just the cutoffs. And I forgot to mention that I have also paced Jamil Curry for a lap of this race when he was just going to get his qualifier, his Western qualifier that year, and that was a very unique experience. And I saw the sport in a totally different view. We can talk a little bit about that, but like I was impressed, inspired, and also just kind of like, there's so many different ways to do this sport that like it was kind of just a fascinating experience. But I think one thing I took away from that, and I wanted to mention before we get too far into the details, is that not only just the amount of like respect and admiration for Jamil that I saw while I was running with him from all the other racers, but also, Jubilee Page has been the race director for this race for many years. And I think she brought it to just a next level with her creativity, with the concepts around a lot of the things that they've done with the branding and turning it into a quote unquote misfit parade, to her costumes and the amount of like detail and just, I guess, attention she puts into making it such a unique experience. I mean, might be the only race that they have like a DJ 24/7 on the stage of the race at the start finish. And I think she went through like 18 costumes last year. So
yeah, she definitely exudes Cher when she comes out.
Yeah, it's just yet another reason to go experience it in some way.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. For crew that come out, please don't think you're going to get a lot of sleep if you're going to be there all night, because like you said, that DJ is going 24/7.
Yeah, totally. So we're going to talk about the course. We're going to talk about some of the logistics, things you might want to consider, recommendations for kind of training gear. We're going to go through all the things that we typically go through on a kind of a classic Ultra Uncovered episode. So where do you guys want to start? You want to start with the course?
I say we start with the course. I mean, I think a lot of people that are looking at this might know a little bit about it, but just top down, it's a looped course in a regional park. The first loop is a tiny bit longer than all the other ones. They're run in the same direction. Maybe Deb, could you talk to us a little bit about McDowell Mountain? Is it McDowell Mountain Ranch Park? Is that the
Yeah,
name of the
it's McDowell Mountain Regional Park.
regional park? Okay.
Yeah, and it's outside of the Phoenix area, so it's part of the Metro Phoenix area. You go through Fountain Hills to get to it, so it is like part of the Southeast Valley for Phoenix area. But it's a beautiful, huge regional park that I go to all the time. To get
Okay.
training runs in. It connects up what we'll be running in that regional park area outside the Fountain Hills, but you can connect it up to the Scottsdale side. And if anyone comes out to McDowell Mountain Frenzy in December, that kind of goes into that area. And I did see today they changed the course a little bit for the 50 miler, and it goes a little bit even more into the Scottsdale area, a little more climbing. But Javelina, very runnable. You said there's 5 loops. The first loop's a little bit longer just to get that 100-mile distance, but each loop's about 1,200 feet of climbing, so not a huge, elevation type of course, but it is a desert course. So there's some rocky sections to it, and there's cholla cactus, so you got to be careful for that as well. But it can be fast. The biggest factor is heat. I was telling Russell when we started, we're having this just unseasonably hot year in late summer. So today is 111. Hopefully in the next 25 days it cools off, because 111 would be brutal. Yeah, typically it's 85, 90 for the high, maybe 50s to 60s as the lows. So big swing in temps, but 85 still feels pretty hot. There is no shade, 0 shade on the course. So plan on being completely exposed the whole time, but it's dry heat. So 85 doesn't feel that bad, if you get maybe a slight breeze going.
Deb, do you use ice on the course? I know that they say that they have it at all of the aid stations. Is it something that's
They have more ice than I've ever seen anyone else have, any other race have. So they actually even sell ice. So if crews out there, they have one or two bags, but it melts, they're selling ice out of an ice truck. So don't be worried about that. And, your first lap, you start, the sun is barely coming up. You might need a little bit of a light. You could probably go without it. It's up to you. But then the sun comes up, and again, that morning, it's going to be the coolest part of the day, that first part of the morning. Hopefully it's, 50s, 60s, and then it'll start heating up. The route comes out of just the entrance of McDowell Mountain Regional Park, and it's called the Four Peaks staging area. You go on the Shalmo. Hello. You go on the Shalmo Trail, and you go on there for a couple miles, and then you hit the Pemberton Trail. And each loop is a clockwise loop. So you hit the Pemberton Trail, and you stay on that the entire time. And then the very first loop is the only time you go on to the Escondido. And Escondido is going to be the most climbing that you do in the entire race. So it's great because you get it out of the way. You never have to go back to it. And by the time you get to Escondido, it's going to be about 20 miles in, and you just have to use a judgment call because it's kind of like a little vacuum. There's no air current there. And, it can be where you can get overheated on your very first loop. So you kind of get a call. You've got climbs there. Are you going to walk it or can you run it? Just don't blow up. And then when you come in, that's when you start bringing the ice in, because the second loop, in my opinion, and from my experience and from my DNF, is like that'll make or break your entire race, because you feel like you still can go. But if you run through it and get yourself overheated, it's going to crush your entire race. So the few times I've really had my best races, the second loop has been my slowest loop I've ever had. I just intentionally slowed down, kept ice on my body. Every single aid station I stopped, I put ice in my bra, I always put have like buffs around my wrists, and I put ice in my buffs. And then of course ice in my hat. And I just make sure I'm not hot when I leave the next aid station. And the aid stations are between, 6.5 miles apart. So it doesn't sound very far, but in this heat, it could be hot. It could be far, just as far as heating up. So ice every time you can. That second loop. The third loop, again, it depends on how fast you're going. I'm, someone that's going to be around the 25 to 27 hour person. So that third loop is going to be half in the light, half in the dark. And so you can start pushing a little bit more, be conservative at the beginning, but then, know you're going to start going in the dark. And once the sun goes down, it starts cooling off. And
Temps drop significantly, right?
That's
Immediately when you don't have the sun on you.
Yeah. I mean, even if it's just behind the mountain a little bit, and that's when you can start making up time. And if you're smart on lap 2, that's when you can start running.
It's really interesting because you talk about the first loop being a little bit longer, but if you look at people's splits, many times the first loop is everyone's fastest loop. So even though
Exactly.
it's a little bit longer, they've either gone out maybe a little hot, or they're just as quick in those loops than in subsequent loops. So I think you really do have to play the long game there in terms of like, where you're going to be and how you're going to be exposed and things like that. So, you talked about the aid stations, kind of 6 miles apart, but there is kind of like a main aid station all the way on the other side of the loop, called the Jackass Junction.
Jackass
right?
Junction,
So
right.
that's kind of like, is it? I mean, it's obviously not as big as headquarters, but would you say that one, has a little bit more than the other two that are like midway in between on the up and then on the down?
They're stocked the same amount as far as food goes. So don't think that you're not going to get the same amount of food and supplies and support. But the Jackass Junction is the one that has the disco going on, and so it really comes to life at night when the sun goes down. And so there's a dance floor, there's music blasting. It's where the people that are doing the 31K, they take their time, or most of them take their time, do a little dance party going on. There's some adult beverages being poured out there. So, if you do want to partake, or you're having a really bad day, bring a few bucks and you can have some adult beverages. And so I don't know if they do this every year. I know one year they had a designated driver for people that didn't make it out of Jackass Junction. So
were racers that just stayed and didn't make it out.
And they planned it ahead of time. They knew we need designated drivers out of here. So.
Only race that exists with designated drivers.
Yeah.
Seriously,
so Corinne, is that where that's where you might find Aid Station Fireball?
Literally, Aid Station. Liam may also be there, but there will literally be Aid Station Fireball there. It's also kind of like it is kind of like the halfway. And, Deb talked about it being about 1,200 feet of climbing, but majority of that is in the first half of this loop. So essentially the first half of this loop is a slight gradual uphill. Overall, there are some like ups and downs, washes, kind of divots and things like that. But really, when you get to Jackass, what I think about too is that is the point where I am going to start to have some relief in terms of it's going to start to feel a little more downhill for the rest of the loop. And so it is kind of also just a good, like, if you're thinking about pacing strategy, right, you might be 30 seconds to a minute and a half, 2 minutes slower on those first mile paces versus on those second mile paces. And so just from a pacing standpoint, I think it's important to know that it's not, you're going to have some relief after Jackass. And like Deb said, there's a little bit of a rocky section earlier on. That's, there's a few of them, but between Coyote Camp and Jackass, there's some rockiness. And then I remember, and tell me if I'm right, Deb, isn't there kind of a decent climb into Jackass? Like, it's not long, but I would say maybe the steepest little part of the course. Right before.
Well, a little update on that section that you just brought up is we had a fire a month ago out there, a lightning strike fire, and so it wasn't too bad. I think I even caught some on film of that burnt out area. It's right before you get to Jackass Junction, and then after I had filmed out there, I guess they hadn't put it completely out, and so it kind of like sparked again. I ran the hangover night run about a week and a half ago, and it was pretty charred. And to get that out, they had to bring in bulldozers. And so that real steep part that you're talking about, Corinne, right before you get into Jackass, they've smoothed it out. Like, it's like bulldozered. It's nice. It's wide. It's smooth. And so there is still the climb, but there's no rocks anymore. And unfortunately, it probably won't smell as bad. I mean, it smelled burnt and it's black around that area for about a mile right before Jackass. But yeah, no more rocky uphill section. It's going to get a little faster.
Records potentially in threat. Under
yeah.
Threat. It's faster course. But just a call out on that. Deb, you have a great. Everyone should reference. Not only listen to this pod, but then go watch Deb's YouTube video on the loop so that you can get some visuals of it. And you put that out just a few weeks ago, right, Deb? Is it?
Yeah, I've got 2 YouTubes. I mean, they're just pretty down and dirty, trying to show you if you haven't been out there to see what the loop looks like. One, I did the Pemberton loop, which is pretty much the core of what the course is, and it'll show that burnt out area. And then the second video I put out shows Shalamo, which comes from the start, and then I loop back onto Escondido, which is the ending section of the very first loop. So you get to see both sections of what that is. So that's on my YouTube.
Is it just under your name? We'll link to it in the show notes.
I have no idea because it's either Deb Hamberlin or Deb Runs Far. It's probably Deb Runs Far. Most of my social media is Deb Runs Far.
Sweet. Yeah. Awesome.
So you mentioned they kind of paved this section out a little bit or smoothed it out, but just in general on the Pemberton Loop, like what kind of shoes are you wearing, and what do you recommend people kind of consider, as they're coming from all over the world, really, to
Yeah.
run an event like this?
There is rocky sections, so I do recommend a little protection underfoot. Um, However, I mean, being so runnable, I mean, I won't recommend for the elites. I'll let Corinne say that. I mean, if you're going in and you want your carbon plated shoe and you're going in the speedy, go ahead for it. For me, I want a little protection underfoot because of the rocky sections. And so I'm wearing speed goats, but I also, I'm debating because I did try the Tecton
Tecton
3
X3.
X3s that just came out. And so Hoka did a shakeout run there where we could try it out on the course. And so I did a Pemberton loop with those a couple weeks ago, and they felt pretty good too. And that had a carbon plate, and it might be a good course to have it for the rocky section. It wasn't great, but as soon as it got smooth, like once you got past that, it really pushed you forward. And I think it might propel you a little faster. So I might be heading to the local, Soul Sports and pick up a pair and just have my speed goats in the back pocket in case I need to change. It's 5 loops, so you can always keep your shoes at your aid station and switch out when you need to. So, but one thing I would recommend is gaiters.
Okay.
There's sandy sections, and like I said, there's choya that's going to be out there. So the gaiters help you from having to stop and dump little rocks out of your shoe. They're pain in the butt. So have a little protection. Those the Tecton has
Yeah.
built-in gaiters, so you don't need to get extra gaiters if you if you wear those as well.
Save you
Um,
a little bit.
yeah, and
Um,
for those, I mean, just even really inside baseball, the Choya section is right after the first aid station. There's like 2 miles, but right after the first aid station, the next 2 miles, keep your eyes out, and that's where your Choya is going to be. That's where Tara Gower just got pummeled.
Yeah. So
and she
famously,
fell completely into it.
she just like
Oh yeah.
leaned into one of them, but then her entire right side of her body or left side, one of her entire sides was just covered in them, and she had to walk with a minute to the next aid station and
Yeah.
have them
But
removed.
you can see them on the side of the trail. They're on both sides of the trail, and all you have to do is brush up against it because, they're called jumping cactus.
Yeah.
You barely brush up and they just jump and they attach to you. So that's the
Get her.
sections like, and so the times I've been out there quite a bit this season, and they're still all over the ground. Mountain bikers hit them and they just pop off and they're out everywhere. So
Well,
that's where
that's
you're
what
going
I
to keep
think
your eyes out.
people don't realize is like, yeah, you see like the tree or like the thing and it's off to the side, but it's all the clumps that have fallen off or whatever that are on the trail that you just have to be complete. I'm sure during the race, like they probably sweep it once, but it's like you still got to pay attention. There still might be some on the ground. It's hard to move. You can't pick it up. Like you take 2 sticks or 2 rocks and like move it
Mhm.
across or something. I don't know.
Yeah. There's also a lot of beautiful saguaro. Sorry, not sequoia, saguaro.
Saguaro.
Saguaro. Saguaro.
Saguaro. Sorry.
From
Saguaro.
the Arizona natives, saguaro.
Thank you, Deb. Saguaro. All right. Well, I will never say saguaro again. Saguaro cacti, um, that are just really cool. I mean, it's just really cool to run through all those areas, and there's some epic photos that you get from it. So
Mhm.
just very Arizona feeling. I would say like, so on the shoe question, um, definitely have seen a lot of people wear uh, road shoes or, super shoes even. Um, I also want some more protection. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's like it's 100 miles, and so what is going to be better for you? A little bit heavier, but some protection for you to be more comfortable, or like a little, the lighter weight to go faster, and then you totally ruin your feet. I've never worn gaiters on the Pemberton or any of the races I've done out there personally, but I also usually wear a Salomon S Lab Ultra 3, which has a little bit of a gusseted kind of, like neck around the ankle. And so I think maybe that does help a little bit. Although I will say I did have some blister issues one year, the 100K year, and that could have been due to dust in my shoes. So yeah, I think it's just totally up to you and what you're comfortable in. But it isn't like California carpet the whole time. It's definitely a trail.
Until, right, the conditions right now are very dry and they are very sandy and rocky. So it makes a difference if we get a little rain, it'll pack down and you won't have all those little pebbles. But right now it's dry and sandy and a little pebbly.
Well, staying on gear, like if you're going to incorporate a costume into this, Corinne, what would be your recommendation for running in a costume? How would you frame that? I mean, you're wanting to still probably run fast, but like, how would you incorporate a costume into this?
Well, I think the most clever but non-costume costumes that we've seen have been people like Dakota Jones, who just had a couple of little like swipes of like, I'm gonna turn myself into a cat and like put a couple of ears on, like a headband, something super lightweight like that. You get the full, and I mean full gamut from people completely covered in inflatables running the entire race. Obscene. I mean, Deb and I were talking about the Flintstone guy who literally had a Flintstone car around him costume. He did have shade. He built his own shade. So he was covered, but he had to carry this like whatever cardboard or whatever it was made out of the entire time. There's been full Hulk costumes. Like I think if you're trying to run fast, like your best bet is to somehow incorporate it into your own race gear. Like the year that I ran the 100K, I put like lightning bolt tattoos all over my legs, so they kind of looked shiny and like I had tights on but I didn't, and stuff like that. Glitter, just crazy colors. Boy, I remember Preston Cates was the Prince of the Desert. He was like, is that Aladdin, the Prince of the Desert or whatever?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Where just like a purple crop top, like just things that are kind of like, they also work as a good a good racing kit. Lots of ears, lots of or devil horns, or like just little accents here and there, just to brighten it up.
So you said Flintstones. Deb, what is some of the worst performance costumes you've seen out there?
Yeah. I have a friend that knows Fred Flintstone, who actually, I mean, his name is Todd Spencer. He's like an Intel guy. So he's a local Arizona guy. So shout out Todd Spencer. Way to go with your Fred Flintstone costume year after year. Because that was a legend. But yeah, we've had one that was like, I mean, every time when they're the super hot ones, you're like, you guys are legends because it's so hot. This guy, I don't know what you would call it, but like a Mexican sombrero with bullets, going cross chested all the way and wearing it for 100 miles. Like, it's got to be heavy, with a vest on, like, yeah.
Also, the masks. I mean, Catcher Corbett's won the costume contest many years, but like her one year she did Alice in Purge Land. And it's a lot of tutus, a lot of just like it basically like looked like an Alice in Wonderland character if they were in the movie The Purge. And so she had masks, but she wore a mask, like a plastic mask, like the entire race, and that has got to be horrifically like uncomfortable. So people, yeah, it's a serious endeavor to.
Yeah. And they, like you just said, they have a costume contest, a couple costume contests, and one of them is the best ass. So I've seen, cooler costumes, which are, the assless chaps.
No.
And
or like a plastic prosthetic butt. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and they go the whole 100 miles, just letting it go. So
yeah, we should say, like we said at the beginning, Russ, it's an R-rated race, so there's a reason.
Yeah. So if your kids come out, let them know that they might see a few cheeks here and there.
Especially
I guess that's one way to reduce chafing.
Oh, yeah, true. But sunburn. on the other hand.
Sunburn.
That sunburn, yeah. There's been some amazing costumes. There was the dead mouse, the DJ. Somebody had his giant. So I have you have no idea what the person looked like. It was like the giant dead mouse costume, which is just a circle, looks kind of like a Mickey Mouse, but like just huge. And it was very like, I don't know. It was just, I mean, it was really cool looking, but it was this massive mask with these huge ears, and it looked very heavy. And
Wow.
I don't know if they were running or just hanging out, but it was an impressive costume. It was high quality.
If we want to go back in time a little bit, if this is not a little too racy, but it was the race director at the time. Nick Curry was one of the race directors at the time, and he and his friend dressed up as Saturday Night Live Dick in a Box.
Oh, they did.
And and he was a young kid, or like, you guys used to be such nice boys. What happened?
So I did not know that. I didn't know that.
That was a classic one. We're like, okay, well.
Those are ones that you're happy like never made it to video and never made it to social media. You're like, yeah, we just need to bury those.
That was pre-live stream. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Pre-live stream.
But talking about the gear, like, what do you do? Do you wear a pack, Deb? I mean, I think we see all varieties of, we see belts, we see handhelds, we see vests.
I'm a combo person, because I'm gonna carry a vest during the day, and because I want that bladder, just to have the extra water. I carry a bottle that one bottle is just to wash me down or cool me off. That's, and then I have bladder because I don't know how much water I'm going to need depending on how hot it's going to be. And then I've got another bottle that's got calories in it. And then as soon as the sun goes down, so on laps 4 and 5, I switch to just a belt and 2 handholds. And by that time, I'm usually just tired of having a vest on. I want to, like I said, go a little faster because, it's the sun's down. I can move a little bit better. I won't need as much liquids. So I do both.
Nice.
Yeah.
Corinne, what's your plan?
Almost the opposite of Deb. Like, I'm gonna switch back and forth as well, but I'm actually gonna start with a vest and then go to handhelds when it's hot. But I will have, so I don't like belts. I've figured out, I haven't found one that works for me. So actually I'm going to just use all the pockets of my shorts for my gels. But I will carry 3 bottles in my hands because I can carry 2 in one hand. Because I think there are sections that I'll want 3 bottles total. So when it's hot out, but going back and forth between having a vest on and having and doing bottles, I also like that strategy because sometimes, you get tired of holding stuff. Sometimes you get tired of having a vest on, and so being able to switch back and forth. So I'm planning to start with a vest, and then for the middle 2, second and third loops, I'll do handhelds and then probably back to a vest for 4 and 5.
Well, and just thinking about like the crewing situation, to me, I see these aerial shots of Javelina headquarters and it feels a little overwhelming, and it seems like you read the website and there's all these different options. So Deb, could you like describe like what does Javelina headquarters look like? What can crews like expect to do, and where should they be, and like, all of those types of things. Like, obviously the runner tracking is really good. Like, you don't, as a crew, you don't have to go anywhere. It's like the only race you don't have to like drive, down the trail to go crew your runner. So that's pretty awesome. But like, it does seem like a little bit of a cluster.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I hope the crew has a little bit of a plan, but let's just say you're doing this next year. So there are pop-ups for crew that right now they're doing a reservation system where you reserve your spot when you can go and then actually get there and pick a spot. So that sounds confusing, but Thursdays and Fridays before the race, they'll give you an hour or an hour and a half time slot, and then you go and then you pick your spot. And they don't want everybody at the same time. In the past, it's just been, an all-out cluster. So, but there's only so many spots. So a lot of people are on a waiting list because they didn't get a spot. So you want to have 3 or 4 runners within each pop-up area, but it's a big horseshoe type of and it's double lined with these 10 by 10 pop-ups. And if you don't get a pop-up spot, find a friend. I mean, people are friendly, and just say, hey, can I share with you? I'm pretty much, the ultra world will be like, come on in and
Yeah.
do it. And so what I think is important for a runner is have something marked, because there's so many spots, and I can't imagine, I don't know how many, but let's just say there's 80 spots, right? When you're running, it's hard to find which one is your 10 by 10. And especially at night, like it's dark and you see these glowing 10 by 10s. If you can have something that marks what's unique about yours, I don't know, have a glow sticks, have some flags, have anything, so that when your runner comes by, they're like, there it is, I can see it, I know it, versus like, where are you? Because pretty much, your crew doesn't know when you're actually coming in or not. They could be taking a nap, they could be in the restroom, they could be down, there's an area right there at the turnaround, which there's going to be food and vendors for the crew to get. Like I mentioned earlier, there's ice that they can buy. There's coffee stations. So, the crew they don't have to be stuck in their 10 by 10. Now, as far as like parking goes, parking's an issue. There is a VIP parking area, which you've had to have gotten, which I heard sold out in like 10 minutes today, or 10 minutes when it came out, which is across the street from the headquarters. If you didn't get in that VIP parking, you're going to have to just park along the street. That crew might have to walk about a mile, maybe up to a mile, half a mile to a mile to get to headquarters. So just be prepared for that. And on race day, you cannot drive into the headquarters. So you can't like drive in and drop off stuff. So plan on anything you're going to bring. You have to be able to carry it, pull it. I actually bring one of those little wagons, and I put my stuff in the wagon, that you do if you've got kids, you do it for your
Beach
soccer
wagon.
games and, and volleyball games and stuff, that you're used to sticking stuff in for your kids. And so you just pull it along. It is on dirt, so make sure that, your tires can go on the dirt and rocky roads to pull up there, but make sure your crew is able to, walk a little bit. And then be ready for a warm day, and then be ready for a cool night. And if you do have a pop-up, just a side note, if you have walls for it, bring some walls that you can move, because the sun moves. And during the day, you might have sun that's on the east side, and then all of a sudden it's on the south side, and then it's on the west side. And just to get that sun off you is going to keep you from melting, because again, if it is 90 degrees, hopefully it's not 111 like today. But it just helps to have that shade.
I was just going to add into there. That's all really good tips. A couple of things. One being, when you go to the start of the race, give yourself plenty of extra time, because there is usually a line of cars. And I think every year I've been there, seen people getting out of their cars and running to headquarters from the cars to get to the start line in time, because it just gets backed up as people try to enter the park there. And so just extra time for the very beginning of the race. And then also that there's a couple of like community crew areas, would you say, Deb? Available?
Yeah, there's two.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So right before the big aid station at Javelina headquarters, if you were leaving, it's right before the aid station. And then there's also a very small section of coverage, like where they have had the expo tent traditionally covering like the loop, and you go underneath that, and where the expo is on Friday, they'll turn into kind of a hangout area. Sometimes they show the live stream on a big screen in there, and that's kind of also like a community area that you could crew from if you need to, because every time you come in and out of that loop, you're going to go back to the start finish, turn around, and then exit back out the horseshoe to go back onto the trip.
Yeah. And so even if you don't have a crew, so that's something where you can just put your drop bags there and kind of self crew out of it. Those two extra community, the crew areas that they let you do.
Nice. And so I mentioned, 2,600 people in terms of like either on the entrance list or on the current wait list. and obviously they're working their way through the wait list now, but 844 entrants in the 100-mile currently. I think they cap out at either 850 or 900. 424 entrants in the 100K, which starts an hour later than the 100-miler. And then 250 people in the Jackass 31K, which I heard they're doing in 2 waves. And I think the 100-miler does 2 waves as well.
You're required to wear a costume for the 31K.
Required to wear a costume. Okay.
Yeah, that's the 6 p.m. night, 1 loop party, and I at least the last time I saw you must be in costume to race it.
And you want to. I mean, you'll stick out if you don't. You'll be like, oh, you're that guy.
In a bad way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a wild party when they get that started. I've come in that loop and they're getting ready to get started, and I'm like, oh crap, I got to get out before they get going.
They get hyped and turn the music up, and Jubilee does a crazy, just gets everybody going, and it's awesome. There's also, I noticed at least over the years, just this influx of a massive amount of like RVs. It's like, or vans, and those are spots that people have reserved too, but it definitely turns into like, they call it Tent City, but it like turns into a miniature city right there at headquarters. It's a pretty big area. Like Deb said, there's food and everything. The live stream is going on the loop, literally. Like we would be able to look behind us through the little curtain and see people running by, where the live stream is going on. The DJ, like all the vendors, like there's plenty of stuff to do, and people just make it their home for the 30 hours or whatever that they're there.
Yeah. So runners, for next future years, like you can rent tents, and they'll set those tents up for you, and you can sleep there the night before and take breaks, or your crew can take breaks in those tents, sleeping tent areas. And I bring my RV out. So I've never had to experience the line going in that race morning, because I'll go the night before and I'll sleep in my RV.
That's
and that's right there at race headquarters, which is nice. And they have pizza the night before out there.
Sleep in there. I need a spot the night before. Just
if you want, you don't mind snuggling, we're good.
Yeah, that's a great point about the tents. So they're like in the middle, whereas all the pop-ups are lining the circle. All the tents that people are sleeping in are in the middle, and then there's little pathways through it. So it literally turns into like a city environment. And one time I went into one of the porta potties. There's a million of them, but I went into one totally out of toilet paper. Next one, totally out of toilet paper. I'm like, oh no, it's like early. Why are they running out of toilet paper? And then like 5 minutes later, I saw somebody walking around refilling all the toilet paper. So they do keep it like seriously stocked, but there's thousands and thousands of people there.
So if people wanted to go to Jackass Junction, how do they do that? How is there a party out there? Are they making the 10-mile trek from headquarters?
It's only runners. That's it.
Only runners.
It is only runners that are out there, volunteers.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no access unless you're in the race or volunteering in the race. So, but I'm sure they'll take more volunteers. So go ahead and sign up.
That's a good plug for the volunteers.
So real quick, just the names of the 8 stations, just so that people know. Javelina headquarters with 2 J's. That is the start finish, and that is the main one. Then you go to Coyote Camp, which is about 4 miles out. Then you're going to go another 6.5 miles to Jackass Junction. And then your last one is called Rattlesnake Ranch. And then back to headquarters, and just keep doing it over and over and over again.
Yeah, you'll get to know it really well.
And as someone has told me in the past, which I think is very true, that, the slight uphill and the miniature hills that are in that first half of the loop grow exponentially every single time you do it again. By the time you're on the 4th lap, it's like, feels like 1,000-foot climb when it's about 150 feet. So just know that even the same thing over and over again is probably going to change your perspective, the time of day, the heat. Like it's going to feel different. I never really got like tired of the loop, so to speak.
Yeah, like Russell said, the first loop, even though it's longer than the rest of the loops is usually the faster one, because I usually run the entire first loop, but everything else before you even get to Coyote Camp, I'm hiking, getting up to Coyote Camp. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned the accessibility of this race in terms of like a first 100K and like the cutoffs, like a 29-hour 100K cutoff. They do a, obviously there's a 24-hour on Sunday at 6 a.m. What I understand is that that's the cutoff for like you have to be on your last lap by that time period. Regardless of what race you're in, you need to be in your last lap at that point. And then it's an overall 30-hour cutoff for the 100-miler, and then like you said, 29 hours for the 100K. So, obviously really accessible for that 100K. Like you just have a lot of time to be able to finish it. If your goal is to finish it, you could go out and hike or walk the majority of that to be able to get a finish.
Yeah. And if you want to take a couple-hour nap, you could do that as well. I know they've been open to some younger runners before as well, like 14-year-old or so that want to go out and do their first 100K. And, the moms have wanted to like let them sleep, 6 hours and do that and still go back out there, just to do a safe 100K. And yeah, it's been a great race to do that.
That's cool.
And we also mentioned it's a golden ticket race, but it's also just a Western States qualifier as well. Yeah. So you've got that.
Yes, absolutely. I was going to tell my quick story about pacing Jamil, just because there were some impressive things that happened. One was that as we started, Jamil again was just going to try to finish this. He just needed to finish because he needed to get his Western qualifier for the year. So his plan all along was to stop at headquarters every single loop and take a 45-minute nap. That was the plan. So he would literally come over, live stream. He would go into the RV and take a 45-minute nap and get back up and go back out on the next loop. So when I was pacing him for his last lap, because we finished, so it was his fifth loop. So we get this is so total behind the scenes. I mean, we have to go wake him up in the RV, and he's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "How you doing?" He's like, "I don't know, contemplating life right now." And then he gets ready to go, and we start on the loop, right? And we're running, and we're about 2 miles into the last loop, and he's like, "I'm just gonna take a quick nap." I'm like, "But Jamil, you just took a 45-minute nap like 2 miles ago. I just need 2 minutes." So, who am I to say anything? This man has done Cocodona. He knows exactly what he needs. So he just sits down on a rock, and I'm like, what do I do? Do I wake him up after 2 minutes? Is he going to automatically wake up? I have no idea what's happening here. He's just like, "I'm just going to stay here and take a 2-minute nap." So he sits down and just puts his head in his hands. And about 2 minutes later, I was just like, Jamil, it's been 2 minutes. Let's go. He's like, "Right, fine." And he didn't, even though like it was dark. I wore a headlamp, but he's like, "No, it's good proprioception work. We don't need a headlamp." No headlamp. But then he took another nap when we got to the first aid station. So there were multiple naps on this last lap. But the impressive thing was that he started just every now and then like reaching down and grabbing something, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm picking up the trash on the course." And so that entire loop, he was constantly picking up wrappers or any little piece of trash and literally like sweeping and cleaning the course as we were going along. And I was like, this is insane. And then the last there were a couple more. One funny thing was that he also at about halfway had to send a text to the entire WhatsApp group chat to let everybody know that they needed to check out of the Airbnb by 11 a.m. So he had to send a reminder. So he's like checking on, work stuff or whatever. And then the last pretty funny thing was that, we got around to that burn area and it's pretty smooth, and we had a drone following us, and he was just kind of like all right, why don't we just run fast for a couple minutes here and just give them a show or whatever. So that we start running like 6:30s just for the heck of it, just while the drone was following us, waving at the goofing off. So I don't know. It was a cool experience, but just shout out to Jamil for all the things he does for not only the community but keeping everyone entertained and taking care of the course at the same time. It was quite
I mean, I didn't even know he was running because he came up on me in Escondido, so that very first lap. And of course he's filming, right?
Mhm.
So he's coming, is like, how are you doing or whatever. So I'm assuming he's just working, like filming.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw him on the second lap. He had stopped. He was helping someone that had gotten heat exhaustion that was laid out and was like comatose. So I thought, again, he's just working and he's just helping someone out. I'm like, oh, good. He's got, he's out there helping, a runner. But he's in the race.
Yeah.
He's actually stopping for an hour, helping another runner to get, and then continuing on.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
It's pretty awesome. Definitely someone who loves the sport. Okay, but enough about fanning out over Jamil.
So for the people that are watching, not listening, I brought here's the big buckle. So anybody that's going under 24 hours, this is what you're going to see. This is what hopefully I'm going for this year, which is over 24 hours. And then very close, it looks almost the same if you do the 100K. There you go.
Yeah, it's one of the only races like 100Ks that gives a buckle, which is really cool.
Yeah, so awesome buckles. So everybody, and then and then they're in the back. They're engraved. All
right, show and tell. This is as years have evolved. This is 2020. Yeah, 2020 100K. Second place. So she's now wearing a dress instead of running. But these are amazing. Like she's got a booty, quite the booty going on. This amazing sugar skull dress. And then my husband got one as well. So we have a husband-wife duo because he also placed second in the 100K that year. And we got a little dude in a suit. So they're some of the coolest awards that you will ever see it. Right?
Super cool.
Did we want to just quickly mention a couple of stats on there have been some people that have run really, really fast at this race?
Yeah, it's a fast race. I usually get looped by the front runners. So anybody, again, in the 26-hour range, plan on getting looped and feel good about it because you get to see those front runners.
And you can probably tell that it's like, okay, yeah, this is the lead pack coming through of people. Because I'm guessing that there's some passing that's going on among the various races anyways, but I'm sure as they're clipping along, you can tell like, oh, yep, they're moving along for that next loop that they're on or whatnot.
Yeah, and the trail's wide enough that I don't feel like there's ever really an issue like with passing. It's double track most of the time that maybe you're going to have at the beginning, depending on, some conga line kind of situation. But once it gets going, if someone needs to pass you, there's plenty of time. Just don't lean into a Choya when you're letting people pass.
Yeah, just don't stress on the very first mile. The first mile is a conga line. After that, you're golden. Rest of it's fine.
Nice. So I've got the top 3 or 4 times for the 100-mile, both on the men's and women's sides. On the women's side, Devin Yanko's run really well here a number of times, but her best time was in 22. She ran 14:36. And then Heather Jackson last year in 2023 ran 14:24. And the fastest time on the course is 2021. Camille Herron ran 14:03 for the 100-mile.
One little thing about that, I saw that race because I was there, and I heard Camille say afterwards that she stopped at every single aid station to cool. Wasn't for long, but literally at every single aid station she did cooling. She stopped at every single one. I saw her at headquarters, never really sitting down, but always taking a little bit of time to do the proper cooling for that next section. So you can still run that fast with taking care of yourself in terms of the heat.
And then on the men's side, the top 4 times have all come from the last 2 years. So before that, Pat Reagan has run real quick here. He had kind of set the mark
And he's
a
in
little
this
over
year.
13
He's
hours.
coming back.
He's in this year. But the top 4 times right now, if we look at the 4th fastest time, 12:59, Ryan Montgomery, and then in 2023, and then same year, 2023, Blake Slatengren, 12:58. And then in 2022, Dakota Jones, 12:58. And the course record is currently held by John Ray, 12:43.
Which is about
So
7:30 average pace.
Wow.
Or 7.
2 through 4 are all within 1 minute. Wow.
yes,
And
That's amazing.
and 3 of them were in 2023, and Blake and Ryan literally like talking about a sprint finish at the end of a 100-miler, basically, because they were both in that horseshoe together. They're less than a minute apart.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Very
and
impressive.
it's wild.
And also some quick 100K times have been here. Raj Panu has run 7:15 in the 100K, which is really, really quick. Scott Trayer's run 7:31 in the 100K. And then on the women's side, Anna Loudon, 8:13, Lottie Brinks, 8:30, Courtney DeWalter, 8:48, and some other ones as well. Corinne has a
Corinne Chalvoy, yeah.
9:39 in there.
I'm about to be bumped off. After this year, I'll no longer be
still on the main list on Ultra Sign Up.
Deb Hamberlin, 12:46.
Yes, what a win. Hey, you can't take the victory away. You can't take the victory away. The time doesn't matter. You've got a victory.
There were no super shoes. There was worse nutrition. That's awesome. No, that's still super solid time. Yeah, I think I was kind of like interested to see that I was like kind of studying how do people run, that first lap. And I mean, Heather Jackson is a bit of the anomaly there because she ran a 2:40 first lap and she still finished in 14:12. So she was just basically on it the whole day. But what I found in general was that a lot of people, didn't run that. If they were a little bit, let's just put it this way, running a fast first loop did not necessarily translate to them running a super fast time. And a lot of people that ran a fast first loop didn't finish the race. So I don't know. I think it's easy to get caught up in that, but like just for people's whatever, for the sake of just how fast people are running this, that first like 22-ish mile loop, a lot of the guys are running like 2.5 hours. And a lot of the front running women are running, just under 3 hours on that first loop. I've thought about this race in the way that like, just do 3 hours on each loop. And then you got a 15-hour 100. That's all you got to do. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about, just the strategy of, do you try to be consistent, or do you try to take advantage of when it's cool and you're fresh, or kind of like if you're going for a certain time, what's the best, quote unquote, best way to run it? And I guess what I have seen is that usually if people can be fairly consistent, they're successful, whatever that means for you, like just not having these drastic swings in, how long it's taken you to do that loop.
And I don't know what the stats are for last year, but in the history, typically this has had one of the higher DNF rates for a 100-miler, even though it's one of the easier on paper races. Maybe because it's looped, it's very easy not to go back out. Maybe because it's hot some years and you can go too fast and blow up. But keep in mind that, you might be a little bit behind, but there's a lot of DNFs maybe in front of you.
Totally. Yeah. Well, it's going to be an exciting year this year. I can't wait to see you out there, Deb. It's going to be a blast. There'll be a live stream again, of course, and trying to get Russell to come out and crew, but no, I know he wants to.
One of these years we'll make it out there for crewing.
For anybody that has not been, highly, highly, highly recommend just experiencing the Javelina 100, unlike any other ultra that you will probably ever go to. And I don't know. If you're watching and you got this far, let us know your costume. Are you
Yeah.
racing? Anything else
Yeah.
that
What's your costume, Corinne?
I don't know. I haven't fully
Yeah.
baked
Yeah.
it yet.
Yeah.
But yours?
History, I haven't worn one. I'm debating. I might just like venture out and do the little ears, a tail, something light. The chafing scares me, right?
I know. I mean, when I was gonna pace Tara, I wanted to kind of like have fun with the outfit. So I found like a Lululemon outfit that was basically like compression shorts with almost like a skirt over it. It was almost like a tennis skirt. And then like a long sleeve white top. And so I kind of like turned it into a tennis outfit and had a visor, but I didn't carry
Hmm.
a tennis racket, so nobody knew I was a tennis player. But it was something that I knew, like functionally and technically, it wasn't going to be a major issue. So I don't know, maybe just go.
Yeah, well, you crushed it last year on the live stream. Was it last year? I just remember seeing you
Yeah,
on the live stream that you looked great with all
thank
your costume changes.
5 costume changes for the live stream last year, including dressing up as Jamil. That was my favorite one. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So definitely have fun with it. And yeah, anything else?
Yeah, and the live streams for everybody. It's they do interviews of all sorts of people, and they're showing finishers throughout the night. So I think it's something cool to pay attention to, regardless. Even if you've got somebody out there running, you might be able to catch view of them at some point, things like that.
Yeah, and one thing I've loved lately, and I'm not guaranteeing that they'll do this again, but is that they put out these little chronicles throughout the race about kind of like little recap of interviews of all different runners in the course. So like they'll go out
Yeah.
and they'll ask a bunch of people from the middle, back, front of the pack how they're feeling, and it's really cool because you get to kind of see everyone's different experiences and like really personalizes it, and then they turn those around really quick and it's like a little summary. Javelina Chronicles or whatever it was, whichever race, Hard Rock Chronicles, and those are really entertaining. So I think no doubt they'll level up again this year. I can't wait to see who the commentators are. I have a guess that Brett Hornig's going to be one of them, just because I heard he's going to
Cool.
race the 31K. Sure, AJW will be out there as always. Probably Chris.
He's running.
Oh, AJ,
AJ,
that's right.
AJW, yeah,
He's doing the 100.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's going to be running the 100-miler. Yeah.
Right. So they're going to have to find some other commentators. Who's going to do it? Who's going to be out there? Can't wait.
They'll find some great people.
Whoever
I'm
it is,
sure
they
it'll be
better
great.
be in costume. That's my one ask.
Deb, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really great to hear that firsthand experience. I want to give you the last word here. Anything else on Javelina?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it. Yeah, I mean, if you guys haven't done it before, definitely get on it. Sign up early, next year if you want to come out. I mean, it's a party in the desert. That's what they say it is, and it totally is. And if you haven't done your first 100K or ultra, the 100K is a perfect distance to come out and just get a little taste, or even the 31K, get a little taste of what Javelina is all about. Come join us in Arizona. I mean, this is where running happens.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.